In the last couple of years, we've seen numerous challenges to this neighborhood first policy. You have, of course, this ongoing thing with Pakistan, a standoff with China, Bangladesh and Myanmar in turmoil, and Sri Lanka and Maldives literally in the Chinese camp. Is this neighborhood policy going to be the biggest challenge that Prime Minister Modi's Modiplomacy is going to face in the next 4 years or so?
Well, I think the neighborhood will always be the main challenge for every prime minister in India, because because of our sheer size, small neighbors in particular always have, should we say, a lot of concerns about what India is up to. For Indians, I think it's a bit of a surprise when we go to countries like Nepal or Sri Lanka and find that they are full of conspiracy theories about India in the way that sometimes Indians used to be about the United States or China. So we will always struggle a bit on that side. There will be a degree of suspicion. And second, we've also sought to try to rid these countries of a tendency for at least one political party in each of these countries to to see itself as anti-Indian. That we have a pro-Indian and an anti-Indian posture in these political systems is something we've tried to avoid. We basically made the argument, and this precedes Prime Minister Modi, that no matter who is in power, no matter which political center exists in these countries, all of them should see India as a friend and as their primary strategic and economic partner. If you remember when Modi came to power in 2014, forget Pakistan and China, they are perpetually going to be a problem for us. But we had a hostile government in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
We had a hostile government in the Maldives. I mean, very hostile. Yamin and the Rajapaksas. We had a friendly government in Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh, obviously.
Yes.
And Nepal, they changed it. Literally, I think there was an article recently said it's the most unstable democracy in the world. They change prime ministers almost every year. So at any given point, there will be one out of every 4 of these prime ministers is going to play an anti-India card. We were able to reverse Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, you saw the Sirisena government, strongly backed by India, come in.
Yes.
Sirisena was replaced again by a government that was at least a little bit more realistic. The Rajapaksas came back, a little bit more realistic about India. But then they had a crisis. The Rajapaksas were completely wiped out. But now you have a situation where all the 4 major candidates, including the JVP candidate, who are a party that was almost created on the basis of a hatred for India, all saying that they accept that they have to work with India, and a Sri Lanka reasonably grateful that the country that saved them from almost starvation in this crisis was India. Maldives, you had an interesting case where Yamin was replaced by a pro-Indian candidate. Unfortunately for us in the last election, 2 of the 3 candidates were pro-Indian, but fought with each other, divided the pro-India vote, if you wish, allowed an anti-Indian candidate in. But what is interesting about Muizu, the present Maldivian, he tried very hard to find an alternative to India. He went to China, he went to Turkey, he went to the Gulf, and each of them he says, I'll be your man against India if you will extend finances to me. All of them said, sorry, that's not going to work. Even China said, we're not interested. And he came back and he said, with reluctance, I have no choice but to work with India. And the same with Nepal. We saw Oli try really hard to create a crisis with India. It didn't get him anything in Nepal politically. He was out of office as fast as any other prime minister in Nepal has been. So and replaced by a man, Prachanda, who began his career as an anti-India candidate.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? I mean, he was the man who hated India the most, and he's now the most pro-Indian person in Nepal. So I would argue that if you look at it over a period of time, each of these countries, one by one, is coming to the realization, even among those who don't like India, we have no choice but to work with India.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think that is also what we're going to see now in Bangladesh, where we have an interim government that is neutral, but has members and groups within it which are very anti-Indian. But I think as we're going to see over time that this government will come to the conclusion, actually, we have no choice.